Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature that spans a whole range of genres to book lovers around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. I'm Laurie Bell, science fiction and fantasy author, reviewer, short story writer, flash fiction writer, and pretty much a bit of everything. And I'm your co-host, coming to you today from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country.
Which is a very cold part of the world at the moment.
It is just a bit chilly today.
A bit chilly, yes. Yeah. Thanks, Laurie. And I'm Veronica Strachan, aka VE Patton, your other presenter and founder of Australian Book Lovers. 171 podcast episodes ago we began. Yes. But here we are at episode 171, and I am a science fiction fantasy author, a little bit of just bordering on horror. I've got some news about horror things from a couple of our fabulous authors that'll come up in the news. Picture book writer, memoir, self-development. Yeah.
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all the trades, all those kind of things. And look, here we are. Let's just mention who we're chatting with today. In case you didn't see it on the cover and you're going, oh yeah, it's just the next episode.
We're so excited for this one. Amie Kaufman is my favourite Australian science fiction and fantasy author. She is amazing. She's also a Melbourne person, and she is a best-selling and New York Times bestseller and Today USA bestseller. Like, she's right up there. So it was marvelous getting to chat to Amie, feeling very self-conscious, very, very nerdy.
We were a little bit fangirly, let's be honest. We were out there. And we probably chatted to her just as much off air as we did on air. Yes. So she was very generous with her time.
So
and that is what I love about it. Since I first saw her speak at Speculate, and we're just trying to work out whether I'd read the Illuminae files beforehand or after. So yes, definitely go and look at her list of books. And she's a great co-author. I has never fought with her co-authors.
Which was amazing to chat about. My goodness.
Yeah, although we haven't had a fight either. We haven't written anything together, Laurie, but
probably
we haven't had a fight.
No.
So that's coming up. So
that is.
And really for all authors, not just for fantasy and sci-fi, speculative fiction authors, YA authors. She's got some, really great advice and really lovely and generous sharing her experience. In the meantime, Here we are at episode 171.
We are. I know. Hard to believe. So should we jump into things?
I think let's go for some news. Just a couple of little bits of news, because we do have a quite a long chat with Amie. So I want to talk to you about the National Australian Horror Convention. Yes. Lordy wordy, NAHC. You are going to be hearing a lot about this. So this is very early notification. It's on April the 30th to May the 2nd, 2027. So you've got a while. But
it just has been announced, hasn't it?
It has just been announced, yes. Just been announced. They've got their website up. So Chuck McKenzie, who we met at the book festival, has sent us the information, the book fair. It's got some fantastic graphics by the lovely David Shembry, who you bought Val the
I did.
Vampire,
Yes,
and we've
I did.
got
Val the Vampires.
yes, we've got Careful with That Axe on the website, which is lovely. So, and really, I love his work. If you look on David Shembury's website, it's fantastic.
Please.
So yes, National Australian Horror Convention. So NAT Oz OZ Horror Con natozhorrorcon.com. Have a look.
Mouthful.
So they want people to get involved. They want donations and sponsorships. They want program involvement and suggestions. Wow. They're looking for vendor applications and volunteers. So lots of bits and pieces. You can have a DIS membership, which I think is very cute. As opposed to, that's how you buy a ticket, you get dismembered. The program, the vendors, the guests. And there's a masquerade ball as a fundraiser. So if you like a bit of dress up, people, Saturday the 1st of August 2026, 7 p.m. till midnight at the Collingwood Town Hall Ballroom, which is where the convention will be held, down in Hodder Street in Abbotsford. The theme is horror, darkness and death of winter. Prizes awarded to the best dressed on the night. So that's a sponsorship and fundraiser drive. Thank you, Rox. I don't know if you hear the cat. She really wanted to go to that. So think about all of that. And what I love about the convention is that their goals. They've set up a non-profit, that kind of thing, but they have celebration of horror in all its many forms, focusing primarily on literature, but also covering media, gaming, comics, and pop culture. 3 days of scheduled events and activities such as panels, workshops, competitions, and guest presentations, and a major focus on Indigenous, Australian, and multicultural horror. An event for fans, industry professionals and traders alike. So it is going to go off, I am absolutely sure, which is brilliant. Yeah. And hop on the website, there's a little brief history of horror events in Australia by Marty Young, and have a little read of that. And please excuse my winching cat in the background. She has been fed. She just thinks she needs to be fed some more.
She's trying to convince the entire audience that she has not been fed.
Yes, this is not true, Miss Roxy. Okay, there you go. So that's item number one. Item number two, I thought I'd give you something, well, not completely different, but the Northern Territory Writers Festival. Because I had a bit of a look, and one of the suggestions from, somebody at festival, whose suggestion was, when you're planning your holiday, have a look at the festivals you're going. Now, unfortunately, we're going north when the Margaret River Writers Festival's on south. So it was either Writers Festival or swim with the whale sharks. We're going to swim with the whale sharks.
Plan better next time.
Yeah, plan better next time. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, that is probably absolutely right. But the Northern Territory Writers Festival returns to Garamilla, which is Darwin, the 28th to the 31st of May, with the theme of navigating. And I just wanted to read this little couple of sentences because I love what people put together to tell you what it's about. Some of our writing people are so good. All right, the world is changing fast and hard, and it can be tempting to disconnect or despair. But in this year's festival, we explore how to stay the course amid uncertain waters, what anchors us in place, what stories nourish us and help us grow strong. First Peoples navigate by land, stars, language groups, ceremony and kinship structures. Collectively, we delve into calm waters that are medicine for our frayed nervous systems. We share what helps us grieve and reckon with the past, and what truth-telling can reveal in order for us to see clearly. And we discover what narratives push back against divisive tides to reveal the currents that connect us all. Together, we will seek the guiding lights that steer us to safe harbour. Beautiful. That's just what you need. I read that and I thought, that is just exactly what I need. I wish I was going to Garamilla rather than over to the west. But anyway, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. It'll be lovely to go back to there. So yes, Northern Territory Writers Festival, 4-day festival, and it's partly in Garamilla and partly down in Mapantwe in Alice Springs. So have a look at their program, ntwriters.com.au /nt-writers-festival, and get along to see that, because really going to some of those festivals and literary events, it's not what's out there in the media. That this is the people that are writing. These are the authors that are producing good work and artists and creatives. So go along to support them. So that's my news.
Yes, fantastic. Well, I didn't have too much, but I did want to delve into a couple of different things. So, just a reminder about the book clubs and book chats that you can find through all your local libraries. So, I know my local libraries, the eastern suburbs here, have several book chats that are scheduled throughout the different libraries in the network. And I'm sure many other libraries have different bits and pieces in regard to book clubs or writers clubs and things like that. So do keep current with your local library news. Most of the websites now actually have like an online newsletter or a list of events that they have, particularly great during school holidays for taking the
Yes.
kiddies along to them. But for those that are maybe a little bit older and wanting to have some people to chat with as well as talking about books, it's a great way of having a bit of a network of people that you can talk to that is just lovely. And you get to talk books. So, hey, who doesn't love that? So, wanted to point that out and just remind everyone to jump onto their local library websites and have a bit of a play, get involved. And they also list all of their writer activities where they have authors come in to the various libraries. I've done a few of them up on my local libraries, so it is a great way to learn a bit more about different authors, how they operate, what they've written, and to show that support to your local authors as well. So I wanted to remind everyone of that. And I had ah, I've got two things. So I did want to mention the benefits of manuscript assessment. So I don't know if have you, Veronica, ever had
Yes,
a
I
manuscript
have.
assessment?
Yes.
Same here. And I'll give them 50-50 for beneficial as well as probably not so helpful. However, they are really useful to get a deep dive into your manuscripts. And I know most of the writers' centres have manuscript assessment or manuscript appraisal opportunities that they have. But also there are a few sort of your manuscript assessment, MAA, MAA? Yes, which is I went through them at one point and do your research, make sure they're bona fide and you're getting a good response from whoever's reading your manuscript, and of course take into account that it's all opinion and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's right or wrong, but do if you do choose to do it, it is a little bit costly. But for those that are just starting out, it's a really good way of actually getting to the nitty-gritty of your manuscript and working out really what sells and what needs a bit of work. The negative, you will potentially get given advice that you don't like. And they will point out that maybe some things in your book don't work. And that does take a little bit of time to process it. But given all the editing that we do down the line with our books and all of the different types of beta readers and different assessments that we have all throughout the life of a novel, it's actually kind of good practice as well for seeing what you don't see in your novel, but also in taking some of that criticism on board and thinking, okay, how do I fix this? Or do I need to fix it? Or, oh, that's a really good point. So, yeah, just thought I'd bring it up again, particularly because we've been talking about and to publishers and different types of editing books and what to look for and all those sorts of things. So, yes, benefits of manuscript assessment and just a couple of little things. So, they do highlight your strengths, weaknesses, readability, and suitability of the work. They'll also address major themes and messages. They'll also offer some recommendations for next steps if they're good ones. And they may go so far as to commenting on current trends in publishing and other market considerations, depending on where you're at in your manuscript life life cycle, I guess you
Yeah.
could say. So
Hmm.
yeah, anyway, I thought I'd just bring that one up.
It's definitely good advice.
Yeah, and last thing I wanted to just mention, because we are talking sci-fi and we are talking to a sci-fi writer, just thought I'd just show you my little list of sci-fi help books.
Ah, very good. Yeah, yeah.
And I will read them. So The Craft of Writing Science Fiction That Sells, Ben Bovra. Now Ben Bovra is one of the leading
Yes,
sci-fi back in the day.
definitely.
Terrific one. Neil deGrasse Tyson's Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. Very beneficial for your sci-fi. Putting the Science in Fiction. Now this one is a collection and I really love this one. It's edited by Dan Cobbold, but it's a collection of science writers who are commenting on the sorts of things that you might find in sci-fi books and what makes them realistic or not.
Wow, that
So
sounds
they
really
go,
good.
there's little essays from the medical side of things with technology, from the virus side of things, from space and whether you could survive being ejected in space. There is the distances between locations, things to do with an earthquake even. It's all about the science in fiction. So I really recommend that one.
Yeah.
And the last one is Stephen and Lucy Hawking, Unlocking the Universe, which is along the lines of a junior about science. But I find it really beneficial for just giving you those ideas for science fiction and what's a what if? What if this happened? What if that happened? So it's really fantastic that it's Stephen Hawking. I mean, who doesn't want to read science by Stephen Hawking?
Well, that's right.
Very
Hopefully
easy
it's
to
got
read
there.
way. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
So that's a really good reminder because I'm looking over at my bench. Hold that thought while I just reach
you grab
across.
yours. Yep. What have you done?
Yeah. So, wait,
What have you got?
There's another one. Wait, no, not that one. Keep going. Wait, I've got more. Hold that thought.
All good, all good.
All right. So, we've got a beautiful one by I'm going to call her our author, the fantastic Eugen Bacon, who is just about to send us her latest book, an arc of her latest book, which is fantastic. And it's called Writing Speculative Fiction, Creative and Critical Approaches. So I have read that. That's really good. And I'll just say I've got a signed copy, by the way. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. And she says, Veronica, be prepared to be astonished. Yes, so that's fantastic. So that was what her thesis was on, which is great.
Brilliant.
I've got Writing Fantasy and Science Fiction by Lisa Tuttle. I don't know if you've read that one. That's really helpful. It's an excellent book on how to be an aspiring writer. So that's that's a really nice one.
Add
Again,
that to the list.
Add that one to the list. Steering the Craft, a 21st Century Guide to Sailing the Sea of Story by Ursula K. Le Guin.
Oh, well.
Yes, I can just see. And it's got exercises. Yeah.
Oh, even more fun.
Exercise 1, Being Gorgeous. Part 1, write a paragraph to a page of narrative that's meant to be read aloud. Use onomatopoeia, alliteration, repetition, rhythmic effects, made-up words or names, dialect, any kind of sound effect you like, but not rhyme or metre. So really charging into the bits and pieces. Another one by Ursula K. Le Guin is Words Are My Matter, which is really good. Writing on life and words, that's a lovely one. But one of my favourites that I've given away to a few people who struggle with writing was called Eats, Shoots and Leaves by Lynn Truss. I don't know if you've ever seen this. That's right.
Nice.
Okay, so this is the blurb on the back. A panda walks into a cafe. He orders a sandwich, eats it, then draws a gun and fires 2 shots in the air. Why? Asks the confused waiter as the panda makes towards the exit. The panda produces a badly punctuated wildlife manual and tosses it over his shoulder. I'm a panda, he says at the door. Look it up. The waiter turns to the relevant entry and sure enough finds an explanation. In bold, panda, full stop. Large black and white bear-like mammal, comma, native to China, full stop. Eats, comma, shoots and leaves. Nice. Yeah, the zero tolerance approach to punctuation. So if you're a little struggling with where to put your commas, this is a really good one. It's lovely. So as you can see, there's lots of stuff out there to help you. And the other one I've got is Writing as a Sacred Art by Rami Shapiro. Yeah, some really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Save the Cat writes a novel, and I know Kate Allen swears by this one.
Yep.
That's a really
I've got
good
that
one.
one
Jessica
too.
Brody, and Writing Down the Bones by Natalie Goldberg. That's a good one as well. Forward by Julia Cameron. So Freeing the Writer Within. So, I had to get a lot of help in the beginning, and I probably should go back and read a few and do a few more of those exercises again.
Because you learn something every time you do.
You do, and you have a deeper understanding of whatever it was. Yeah, so get yourself some books, people.
Fantastic.
Good one, Laurie. Thank you.
That was fun.
Good reminder. Yeah. Okay, enough news. Time for Book Spotlights. And we have some fabulous book spotlights, and I'm just going to bring them up because it's so many. I've got a little bit of everything for you tonight. First of all is All In on Tomorrow by James Ynson, and this is a memoir, and it lays bare a life forged in fire, an extraordinary journey of resilience from the despair of the author's early years to a profound appreciation for life. Born into desperate poverty and abandoned by his mother in the Philippines, the author's earliest years were a harrowing landscape of abuse, perversion, violence and murder. The promise of rescue arrived with a move to Australia and a reunion with his mother, but this new beginning quickly devolved into another nightmare. At 16, the author left home with nothing but an unshakable will to survive and thrive. His relentless drive led him to America, and at 19, fueled by ambition and a passionate, though turbulent, relationship with a woman in Washington who had HIV. Near destitution, he pushed through adversity and found his calling as a teacher. Heartbroken after a marriage shattered by his wife's infidelity, the author embarked on a transformative global journey. Now, having returned to Sydney, strengthened and clear-sighted, the author lives a fulfilling life with a loving partner and a beautiful son. This memoir is a raw, unflinching account of survival, the relentless pursuit of self-worth, and the enduring impact of a history that forged an imperfect yet remarkably resilient individual. Amazing that some people's lives and the courage to tell the stories. We've spoken about this before. All right, a little bit more about James. He holds a master's degree in education from George Mason University in Virginia and lives by the philosophy that how you do anything is how you do everything. I do like that. When he's not teaching, he enjoys travelling with his family, playing basketball and getting together with friends over a game of poker.
Nice. So, book 2 tonight, we've got Embers of Doubt by D.T. Bella, which is a fantasy whodunit. Yathram thought he had no further business with the College of Mages, but they have further business with him. It's a simple task. For his assessment of which apprentice to promote to mage, he did catch the mage who murdered another fairy after all, and turns out the archmage would rather not have another murderer working at the college. But while assessing the candidates, a fire breaks out. When the smoke clears, one apprentice lies dead. Amongst the ashes rests evidence the fire was more intentional than it seemed. As more misfortune befalls the college, Yathram and the town guard seek to find who is behind it, hopefully before someone else dies. So our bio for the wonderful D.T. Bella is an Australian author who writes detective fantasy fiction. Love fantasy, love detective, jam them together. He lives in southeast Queensland and finds the local scenery quite inspiring. In his spare time when he's not writing, he enjoys model railroading and cooking.
Now, there's a combination you don't see often.
You
Very
don't
good. Brilliant. All right. Book 3 is Shrewd Little Sleuth by Scott Leckie. Now, this is a biography. It is a true story of espionage, Hollywood, and one of history's most enduring mysteries. In his gripping new book, Shrewd Little Sleuth, international human rights lawyer Scott Leckie embarks on a haunting and deeply personal investigation into the extraordinary and secretive life of the grandfather he never met, Arthur Bernard Leckie, whose initials are, in fact, ABL. Drawing on thousands of pages of archival documents and family records, Shrewd Little Sleuth reads like Forrest Gump meets LA Confidential. From Pearl Harbor to the founding of the United Nations, from Washington's corridors of power to Hollywood's smoky backrooms, ABL's story threads through the defining political and cultural flashpoints of 20th century America, exposing the moral contradictions at the heart of the great American dream. ABL spied, bugged, wiretapped and exposed people for their political beliefs. He orbited some of the most destructive figures in American politics and helped shape the rise of modern authoritarianism. Try saying that at the end of a long day. All right. Among documents Leckie received via FOI were letters between ABL and his infamous former boss, J. Edgar Hoover, who ran the FBI with an iron grip for 50 years. After his break with Hoover, ABL's moral compass faltered. He became entangled in the Hollywood purges under Senator Joseph McCarthy and the House Committee on Un-American Activities, destroying lives in the name of loyalty. Later, he slipped into the darker corners of Tinseltown, working as a private investigator for the Stars. His final act, serving as Marilyn Monroe's private detective. Both Monroe and ABL died mysteriously in Los Angeles within 24 hours, just a short 10 minutes apart. The official record lists Monroe's death as a probable suicide, but Leckie's findings point to a darker narrative. And as a leading voice in global human rights advocacy, author Scott Leckie brings both moral clarity and personal reckoning to this remarkable story. A compelling fusion of history and conscience, Shrewd Little Sleuth is an unflinching exploration of legacy, secrecy and truth, a cautionary tale for modern times. Wow, there you go.
I would get stuck on that title 3 times too fast.
Shrewd Little Sleuth. That's
great...
good. Good on you, Scott. All right. Now, Scott's a world citizen who's lived in more than a dozen countries and worked on human rights issues in more than 80 countries. His interventions helped to protect hundreds of thousands of people against planned forced evictions in popular communities in the Dominican Republic, Panama, Philippines, South Africa, Thailand, Zambia, and around the world, and led to additional hundreds of thousands of refugees and IDPs being able to repossess their homes. For the past 20 years, he's worked with communities threatened with displacement due to climate change. Scott has taught and designed several human rights courses, developed the world's first law school course on climate change and displacement, which is taught at the College of Law and the Australian National University, University of Melbourne Law School, Monash Law and Mahidol University. He's written 26 books and over 300 academic articles and reports on issues including world citizenship, land solutions for climate displacement, housing rights, economic, social and cultural rights, forced evictions, the right to housing and property restitution for refugees and internally displaced persons, and other human rights issues. He's written 2 novels in a 7-book series, the Pacifica series, as well as 2 biographies on his paternal grandfather and a maternal uncle, both of whom led extraordinary lives. I think yours is a little bit extraordinary too, Scott, can I just say? Scott lives on and is entirely dependent upon planet Earth, just like you. Good on you, Scott. Well, how different from his grandfather that he never met?
My goodness, that is a story and a half. Wow. Wow. I want to just delve into so many of those, just this section, then this section.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. So, book 4, on to a completely different topic. We are with romance. So, Deck the Halls by Susan Horsnell. A forbidden kiss, a leaked photograph, a powerful earl who will do anything to protect his legacy, no matter who he destroys. When the press erupts with the news of Peter Cranford's relationship with a lawyer, Xander Miller, Peter is dragged back into the ruthless world of his aristocratic family. But nothing prepares him for the night his father's men break into Xander's home and drag Peter away. Xander isn't a fighter, but he'll risk everything to get Peter back. What follows is a rescue that makes headlines, a criminal trial that shakes the aristocracy, and a love story that refuses to die under pressure. As Peter heals and the truth comes out, the pair build a life together, founding a law firm, a family, and freedom. For the first time, Peter chooses his own future, Xander. Oh, So, Susan, the author, Susan is a USA Today best-selling Australian author who writes in a variety of genres, including Western romance, historical romance, gay romance, and contemporary romance. She also writes murder mystery and paranormal historicals. Wow,
What
that's
can she
such a
not do?
yeah.
She's fabulous, Susan.
Oh,
She really is. Yeah.
she's published over 60 books and novellas, many of which feature strong independent heroines and rugged alpha male heroes. Some of her popular series include the Outback Australia series and the Carter Brothers series. Her books are known for their well-researched historical details and vivid descriptions of the Australian landscape. Her work has garnered praise from readers and critics alike, and she has won several awards for her writing.
There you go. Yeah, and yeah,
Fantastic.
she is a great, prolific author.
What a number of genres.
I know, right? Can turn a
Oh,
hand at anything.
yeah,
Okay, book 5 is Time Kneels Between Mountains by Amra Pajalić, and this is an historical fiction
great
book.
title.
Yes, and we met Amra at the book fair as well. Time Kneels Between Mountains is a haunting and a heart-stopping new novel which transforms one of humanity's darkest tragedies, the Srebrenica genocide, into a work of fierce beauty, remembrance, and resistance. On 11th of July 1995, the town of Srebrenica in Bosnia and Herzegovina made history for the worst of reasons. 8,372 men and boys were slaughtered and buried in mass graves, the largest massacre on European soil since World War II. Drawing on Amra's PhD research and creative writing at La Trobe Uni and her Bosnian heritage, Time Kneels Between Mountains masterfully blends historical fiction and murder mystery to illuminate one of the most devastating and underrepresented chapters of modern history. Told through the eyes of Seka Torlak, a young Bosnian Muslim girl, the novel follows her transformation from a carefree teenager into a survivor navigating the horrors of siege, starvation, and moral collapse. In the face of annihilation, it's the women of Srebrenica who emerge as the moral and emotional anchors of their community, mothers, daughters, and survivors, carrying the unbearable weight of memory. From mothers bearing children in fragments, to girls hiding books beneath rubble, to families fleeing through sniper-laced forests, the novel exposes the quiet heroism and endurance of those who refuse to surrender their humanity. Balancing terror with tenderness, Amra Pajalic's powerful novel reveals how, even in the darkest times, love, dignity, and truth can survive. That's another wow, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 Okay. Here's a little bit more about Amra. She is an award-winning Australian author, educator, and indie publisher known for crafting compelling stories that blend heart, humour, and heritage. Her work explores themes of identity, belonging, and resilience, often drawing on her Bosnian background. She won the 2009 Melbourne Prize for Literature's Civic Choice Award for her debut novel, The Good Daughter, re-released as Sabia's Dilemma. The anthology she co-authored, Growing Up Muslim in Australia, was shortlisted for the Eve Pownall Award in the 2015 Children's Book Council of Australia Book of the Year Award. So that's the CBCA, which is a mouthful. And her memoir, Things Nobody Knows But Me, was shortlisted for the 2020 National Biography Award. Amra is committed to accessibility and inclusion in publishing. Through her micro press, Pushukin Press, she releases her titles in a wide range of formats, including audiobook, large print, dyslexic font, paperback, ebook, and a hardback, to ensure all readers can experience her stories. That's brilliant.
Wonderful.
A creative Brimbank artist in residence since 2023. When she's not writing, Amra is podcasting on Amra's Armchair Anecdotes, mentoring emerging writers and delivering workshops across Australia on self-publishing, writing craft and creative resilience. Wow. Amazing. I love the alliteration.
Incredible authors, right?
I know. And it goes on. We've got a couple more.
So book 6. Book 6 is Hollow Peak by Max Jeffries, which is a mystery thriller. So Hollow Peak is a gritty, emotionally charged story while still honouring the structure and pace of a compelling crime thriller. A novel with deeper emotional weight and a protagonist who is not only flawed, but profoundly human. Hollow Peak has themes of helplessness, loss, and grief, but these darker moments are tempered by threads of friendship, trust, and sharp investigative skills. Henry Hobbs is a character shaped by loss, but guided by a brilliant mind and an unshakable moral compass. Countless hours of research were poured into capturing the period accurately and authentically through Hollow Peak, though Hollow Peak is still a crime thriller. Jeffries' passion for suspense is very much alive in its pages. The author hopes that this story grips you, moves you, and keeps you guessing until the very end. And to tell you a little bit about Max, Max was born and raised in Sydney and has always had a deep passion for writing. While pursuing studies and a full-time career, he put his ideas for a novel on hold. It wasn't until many years later that he finally found the confidence to bring one of those ideas to life, resulting in his debut novel, Altered Sense. Throughout the writing process, his appreciation for literature deepened, recognizing it as not just a creative outlet, but an intricate art form. With a love for crafting thrilling narratives, he aims to create fast-paced stories that captivate readers with suspense, intrigue, and excitement. He still lives in Sydney with his wife and son, and when not writing, he spends as much time as possible with his family, and of course, reading.
Excellent.
I hear you, Max.
It is very good. All right. Last book spotlight for today is The Little Book of Influence, 8 Keys to Transformative Communication by Jordana Borensztajn, which is a non-fiction book. What if your biggest communication disasters could become your greatest superpowers? In a world overflowing with polished pictures and artificial content, the true competitive advantage isn't perfection, it's vulnerability. And when harnessed with the right tools, it becomes your ultimate strength. Meet communication expert and author Jordana Borensztajn, who once dressed as a giant like button and was escorted off Facebook's Silicon Valley campus, who bombed so badly on a cruise ship that passengers demanded she get off mid-sail, who wedged a raw egg in her mouth chasing social media fame and instead injured her jaw. Career-ending catastrophes? Not quite. Each humiliating fail became fuel for transformation. And in her new book, The Little Book of Influence, Jordana introduces the presence framework, showcasing the 8 keys to authentic influence. With trademark humour and honesty, Jordana shows how to turn awkward moments into assets, building influence not through slickness, but through presence, connection, and humanity. The Little Book of Influence is more than a communication guide. It's a call to embrace your flaws, share your truth, and discover the real power that comes from showing up as yourself. So there you go. That sounds like a hoot, but helpful, a helpful
Yes.
hoot. Yes. So a little bit more about Jordana. She's a keynote speaker, TEDx presenter and communications expert who combines magic, mentalism, comedy and sharp insights to transform the way people connect. A former journalist turned stand-up comedian, she has performed sold-out shows at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival and hit the stage across 3 continents. With experience spanning newsrooms, comedy clubs and corporate stages, Jordana brings a rare and entertaining perspective to human connection. As an MC, trainer and performer, she helps individuals and teams unlock their communication power through joy, laughter and learning, creating unforgettable experiences that inspire lasting change. The Little Book of Influence is her 4th book. Yay, Jordana, good on you.
Yes.
The Little Book of Influence. So they are 7 amazing books of every genre.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And,
We have so many genres on the site.
We have more on the
amazing.
website, and there's
Yes.
just, they keep on coming. We have so many fabulous Australian authors, and and lots of people are following us on social media, and I see that they're authors, but don't necessarily, we don't have their books yet. It's free, people.
What? Come
I'm
on,
getting
people.
I'm getting lots of
Yes.
emails at the moment from people who go, we'd love to list your book. They never mention which book. These are all spam.
Yes.
What do you call, not spam, flam things. What do you call them?
Yeah, yep.
Scams.
Scams.
Spam, flam,
Yep.
scams. They're all scams. For only $50, we'll list your
Oh.
book on our website and
We
tell
don't.
to people about it. It costs nothing.
Yeah.
If you are an Australian author, you can list your book on our website for free. Foolishly, for free. What was I thinking?
We have
Anyway.
We have so many books, people.
We have so many.
Jump on the website if there is any genre. Seriously, if you've
Yeah.
got a particular interest, we probably have something in that area.
I'm sure that we do. And I was just having, after, announcing the National Horror Convention, I was reading through the horror. Oh, we've got some great horror there. We've, by sort of, leading lights of Australian horror like Alan Baxter, Pauline Yates, so many more, Matthew B. Davis, lots, and the lovely Darren Casango, of course.
Oh, yes.
Lots of bits and pieces there, which is fantastic as well.
Yes.
But if you do want to help us out, because it did cost me more than $50 to post off last month's giveaways. Please, feel free to subscribe and give us a couple of dollars to help with the postage of our giveaway books. And yes, the May edition, I've got that newsletter ready to go out while I'm away. I've got that schedule, which is lovely. So please jump on AustralianBookLovers.com. And for authors, for people putting their books in, for book lovers, if you just want to be in the winning for a book, and go onto our podcast page, press the big heart, and give us a couple of dollars. Would be lovely.
And if you love us and you listen to us all the time, we have merch. There is merch.
We do.
We have merch.
Look, we're both wearing. I've got. What have I got? Sci-fi on.
You've got sci-fi. I went fantasy because Amie writes both sci-fi and fantasy.
So we've got it covered. We have got it covered.
Absolutely. And yes, check out the website. We've got links there as well, so you can buy mugs. And
a little bit of merch helps, and we work through Redbubble, which is a great little company supporting creatives. Yeah. I think it's time.
We go. Yep. Let's do Amie. Book lovers, our next guest is not only a prolific and fabulous Aussie author, but they're also a fantastic resource for authors everywhere. We are chatting with New York Times, USA Today, and internationally best-selling author of science fiction and fantasy, Amie Kaufman. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love a chat, as you will all learn in the next few minutes.
Wasn't hard to convince you, which is lovely. So welcome, Amie.
Yeah, I'm always up for a chat.
So I'm coming to you today from Wurundjeri Wurrung country. Where are you coming to us today from, Amie?
I'm on Boonwurrung land down by the sea. Always have been. Love it.
Lovely.
Very lucky to live here.
It's a beautiful place, and also still part of the Kulin Nation. Up here, I'm on Wurrung country, but far, far, far away, close to Jajawarrung. We're up near Mount Macedon. It's a lovely spot. Yes. And we've just talked about the days getting darker, which means it's great for reading.
It is perfect reading weather.
And I'm about to go on a really long holiday, and I have got already a crate of books, plus I've got my Kindle loaded, and I may have just finished Red Star Rebels, and I may have also only got time for Ladies' Night. I've read the first 2 pages because I only was able to download it for the library yesterday. I was going, come on, people, read it earlier. But ananyway,
read faster, return
it.
That's on my list. I'm Isles of the Gods at the moment. I don't know if you can see that, but yay.
Yeah,
oh, my children.
Oh, yes.
So exciting.
Yes.
So let me tell all of our listeners a little bit about Amie. So Amie Kaufman is a New York Times, USA, and internationally best-selling author of science fiction and fantasy. Her multi-award winning work has been translated into nearly 30 languages and is in development for film and TV. Raised in Australia and occasionally Ireland, Amie has degrees in history, literature, law, and conflict resolution, which I want to ask you about later, and is currently undertaking a PhD in creative writing. She's the host of podcasts, Amie Kaufman on Writing, and Pub Dates. Amie writes a monthly newsletter that keeps readers up to date on what she's working on. Any new releases, giveaways, or events near you, you can also check by signing up at amiekaufman.com. Amie lives by the sea in Melbourne, as she's mentioned, with her family and an extremely large personal library, which I love that idea. And her latest books are Isles of the Gods, which is what I'm reading, Ladies' Night, which is what Veronica's reading, and Red Star Rebels.
You can say we love a little bit of speculative fiction, Amie, and really you're satisfying our those itches very well. Yeah.
Look, I know what I love and I write what I love. It's a very fun job.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
I love that. I read a little bit on your website, and your characters all have sass. And having heard you speak at some conferences and those kind of at Speculate when that was on, and the book fair and a few other, and certainly listening to your podcast, that is absolutely you. So that's your voice that we hear in all those sassy women.
Yeah, it is. Although, gosh, I'm just thinking back to Speculate, you would have got a lot of sass, I imagine, because I was so pregnant at Speculate.
You were.
Like, I remember all the organisers were hovering in the wings, being like, "Are we going to add a little drama with a live birth on stage?"
I'm a midwife, so it would have been fine.
Oh my God, I should have. Wow. If only we'd had you a few weeks later when I was doing a launch signing and getting Braxton Hicks all the way through.
No.
Yes.
Oh, Amy.
No, my co-author Jay just looked sideways at me and was like, "Absolutely not." Of all the things that man was prepared to cope with, he would be the first to say
like,
me giving
Was
birth
he
was,
inching further away as you, yeah?
not the sort of emergency he's equipped for.
No, fair enough. Yeah, you can go with many things.
Yeah.
I'm going to start us off then, because otherwise we're just going to get fangirly, which is embarrassing. We're going to start with the inspiration for Red Star Rebels, and look, the timing given Artemis too. But tell me, inspiration.
I mean, so look, lots of different pieces came together for Red Star Rebels. I think for listeners who aren't familiar with the book, it's kind of like Die Hard meets The Martian. Or if I'm not feeling very grown up, it's maybe like Home Alone meets The Martian. It's about two people who get stuck at the evacuated UN base on Mars, and then the mercenaries roll in and they have 8 hours to stop the base being destroyed, save their own lives, and maybe save a large chunk of Mars as well. So a bunch of different things came together, and one of them was, we all felt incredibly inspired watching Artemis 2 go up. I think it was, as I forget who said it, but we sent 4 poets to space. They really captured the mood of the moment, and they gave us something to hope for at a time that we all desperately want to. And I've been lucky enough to make some good friends at space agencies, and I think, there's going to be this decision for us to make quite soon, and I mean in the next few years, about, do we go to space together like that, like Artemis 2, for all mankind, or do we go every man for himself? Do we let the tech bros, be the ones to break the seal and make a break for Mars? Because we could do it a lot sooner than we're planning to if we were a lot more cavalier about how many people survived the experience.
Yes.
So, I think we need to be having more of a conversation about who's going to go, and, in what way are they going to go, and for whom will they go. So I think that in part, this book was me this is my contribution to that conversation, because what science fiction ultimately does is it takes some situation that's occurring today and it invites us to extrapolate the way, either one of the ways we could behave right now into the future, and see what the ultimate result will be. And if whether we like or don't like that result, might sort of drive us to make changes in the way we're behaving right now. And so, it was in part, it was the conversations I was having with them, and, the type of progress I was watching happen. But it was also just a moment when I was at NASA, and I was doing a bit of a backstage tour at JPL in Pasadena with one of my friends who's an engineer. And we were talking about the issue of dust, because dirt on Mars is not the same as dirt here. Martian dirt, which is called regolith, is more like talcum powder. It's very, very, very light, and it hovers in the air and it coats everything, and it covers your solar panels, and everything has to be self-cleaning. And we talked about, how dust storms can come along and just completely obscure, visibility, because it's so light, it can stay in the air for ages. And so being a writer, I immediately thought, I wonder what you could do if no one could see you from orbit. And, this is my answer.
It's a great answer.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I love the way that it does touch on that greed concept, and the rich person's Mars, and just going into those themes, which is very relevant for this day and age, I guess.
Yeah.
Look, one of the great challenges of that book was that, and it's well, I mean, one of the great challenges was I didn't want it to be a preachy book. I want it to be an incredibly fun romp that when you put it down, you feel like you just walked out of an action movie. You know, so challenge one was that. But the two main characters, you know, thank you. The two main characters kind of represent our two options. You know, one represents the rich man's Mars and one represents the everyman's Mars. And it was to make sure that the reader didn't just hate the rich man's Mars character, but actually, you know, got to know them and got to learn about them. And because no point of view in this debate is completely without merit. So, you know, I think it was, you know, and if it was, then it'd be easy. Like if there was just an obvious right answer, we'd be doing it. But I think the fact that, you know, whether you agree with them or give them enough weight or not, there are points to be made for, you know, all different kinds of cases. I think that, made writing about it much more interesting.
Love it. Well, I'm going to read everyone the blurb.
Yes.
I need to tell everyone.
Okay. Sorry, Laurie. That was my fault.
No, it's great to chat about it and then jump into the blurb because it just drives that I want to read it.
Yes.
Anyway. So, the blurb for Red Star Rebels. 8 hours to stop an explosion. 8 hours to fall in love. From New York Times best-selling co-author of Illuminate, which I love, and Aurora Rising, which I also love, comes a high-stakes, high-chemistry sci-fi romp about a stowaway girl and the richest boy in the galaxy, racing the clock to outwit a gang of mercenaries. It's 2067, and the Graves family has transformed Mars from a lifeless rock into a chaotic patchwork of settlements, and everyone wants a piece. Enter Hunter Graves, handsome, ambitious, and with spectacularly bad timing. He shows up at the United Nations base just as an emergency evacuation sends everyone scurrying for safety. Except he's left behind. Uh-oh. Also stranded, Cleo, a sharp-tongued stowaway with no intention of dying today, and even less patience for overconfident trust fund boys. But the enemy of your enemy might just help you survive, so here we are. Turns out the evacuation was just a cover for the mercenaries who came next, and they plan to blow up the base and every trace of their crime in 8 hours. Now Hunter and Cleo have one shot to stop the explosion, escape alive, and deal with the inconvenient fact that they're falling for each other. The clock is ticking. And I love the way you use the ticking clock the whole way through the story with that countdown.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. So, like, the whole book is set, listeners, over the course of 8 hours. So you get these markers all the way through telling you how much time is left, although at the start you don't know to what. And it was a really fun constraint because I was thinking about movies like, say, Speed, where it's just nonstop and no one has a chance to stop or slow down or process or make good decisions. And, you know, the challenge there is obviously to make the relationship feel real as well. And I think, you know, with a movie like Speed, it's not that you look at Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock at the end and say, well, you'll be married within weeks. You know, you understand that what's happened has happened in a day, but you don't doubt how much, you know, they've come to care about each other and be willing to fight for each other in that time. So I had a lot of fun kind of creating that kind of romance.
Yeah. It comes through beautifully. I do love the banter between the two of them.
It was very fun to write.
And the diagram at the front, do you have a specific someone who draws those for you? Did you draw up a little example?
Oh, let me see if I can. Hang on a minute. I think I've got
Sorry
my
to put
map
you on the spot.
sitting.
I was very excited by that before.
Sorry. So there's a map in the front of the book. For those who are watching, my version of that map looks like this, which is to say, look, and rubbish for those who can't see it.
Conceptual, Amie, conceptual.
It's done in Sharpie. It shows a big circular base, and then I've just labeled everything. And the reason for this is actually this map is just this gorgeous blueprint. But I've had fantasy maps in the past done by a different artist, and she taught me, like, basically don't try to be clever with the way that you're drawing it, Amie. Like, the best thing you can do is just draw it incredibly clearly. And, like, badly, but clearly, because she's going to be the one who makes it beautiful. But she can't do that if she can't understand my artistic stylings. So Just make it really clear. And so that's the lesson I took from that experience. And so with this map, I just made it super clear. And I needed that map really early because when you are putting a countdown through the book, you have to know how long everything takes. You can't say, well, it takes 3 minutes to jog from the water recycling unit to, this evacuation bay at the start, and then later it takes 15 minutes or 1 minute. You gotta know. So
Yeah.
Those are the tricky plotting issues we
Yeah.
all have, I think.
The logistics were quite a challenge.
Veronica, do you want to jump in?
I'm just going to do just one more little fangirl about the Red Star Rebels. I mentioned that I listened to the audiobook, and Laurie and I have talked before, and I do love listening, and I've either got a book on my ears or a book in my hands, or it's
same,
always there.
yeah.
Yes, yeah, just it's voracious is the word. And I love the multicast. It was seamless, and I just felt that these two made it immersive, as you say. That was a really good word, because I kind of forgot that I was listening to a book. And usually I can listen to an audiobook and keep doing whatever I'm doing. But I found that I had to stop, and I was just, I'd be leaning on the bench thinking, oh God, I better get up. What was I doing? Because I would be as though I was reading the book. They were great. The voices were great. The interaction was excellent.
And the sound effects, just beautiful.
Yes.
I mean, obviously I didn't make it, so I'm just a fan of this. But
did they give you an example or some different recordings?
So the producer, and with audiobooks, the producer is basically the person who just shepherds it through from day one to the end of production. My producer is a guy called Nick Martorelli, who I've worked with many times on, Unearthed and one of the Illuminae books and Aurora and the Isles of the Gods and whatever else I forgot, like so many things together, Nick and I. And so we have this fantastic working relationship. And actually, those who are, if anyone's a nerd about this, I would encourage them to go to the feed of my Pub Dates podcast, where you can find a 4-chapter sample of Red Star Rebels, so you can have a proper listen. But also there's actually 2 episodes. One's called Making an Audiobook, and the other one, I forget what it's called, but one has interviews with all my narrators, and one has a big interview with Nick about how we make audiobooks together and how we consult and all that. And it's just, I am an audiobook nerd, so I was just having a great time interviewing him.
No, that's fantastic. Well, we were going to mention your podcast, because I am always telling new writers and authors and wannabe authors to have a listen to your podcast on writing, because I found it really beneficial when I was really kicking off with my books, and not pointing out how old I am, but I've been listening to them for a long time, because they're so detailed in the little snippets that you do.
Thanks. Yeah, I put a lot of effort into it. I do. So, with the Amie Kaufman on Writing podcast, which is on a break now because I only have so many hours in the day, but it's, it's still there. There's 45 different lessons. You don't have to listen to them in order. You can just use it like a toolbox and pull out what you need. Each one's about 10 minutes long. And I would spend a long time writing those scripts, and, you just get a quick lesson in one, where to end a chapter, how to show your world building, how to, dialogue, first person or third person, whatever it is. And then, you can sort of listen to it and do an exercise at the end. And I created that podcast because for me, it's part of sending the elevator back down again. And, I pay out of my own pocket for the production of that podcast, and I don't accept any advertising, because if I do, it can't be used in schools and in some universities. And so because I want it to be a resource for schools, particularly for schools that might not be able to get an author in to visit, 10 minutes is, they can play it in a writing sort of lesson, and then everyone can do the exercise. And I know that actually happens a lot. So, that's there very deliberately, sort of as a resource for that reason.
Yeah,
it's
a fantastic
resource. Yeah.
I will say though that the 10 minutes is not really very good, because I had to stop listening to them on my walk. No, I used to listen to it on the walk, and I'd get down the first street and I go, I have to do an exercise. so that I'd have to go home
Yeah.
and re-listen to it
To it.
with pen and paper. But anyway, no, they were
Yeah.
brilliant. I did love them.
For big walks, you probably want pub dates where we just chat for an hour
Chat
about
for an hour.
publishing.
Yeah.
Was much better. So yes,
Yeah.
they were priceless indeed. All right. So Laurie's got some fabulous questions, and I've chucked in a couple as well. So Laurie, do you want to start off?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so
Yes.
since you are such a prolific writer, and we've mentioned only some of your books, which feels like I could go for hours. But how for you've got the podcasting, you've got the panels, you've got the co-writing, you've got books on the go. What does a regular writing day look like for you?
Oh, okay. It does vary a little bit. Because I'm usually doing more than one thing at once, but I try to sort of block them. So, for instance, right now I'm in this month-long period where I've handed off the draft of my 2027 book to my editor, and she's reading it right now. So there's nothing I can be doing about that right now. And it's too soon after handing it in for me to even be thinking about my own edits. The best thing I can do is not think about it at all, so that when I pick it up to read it, I'm fresh. And later this year I'll be writing something else. So I've sort of got this little magical month right now between trips. So what I'm doing right now is I'm doing the final, I pray to God, final revision on my PhD thesis. So there's that. I am also in a couple of months, I'm launching my new fun project, which is a mail club. So which will be like, every month for a year, get a letter that's sort of all about sort of finding yourself creatively, about what are your creative values? How do you rest? How do you deal with comparison? How do you deal with worrying that you'll do something sincere and people will think that it's rubbish, that sort of thing. So I'm spending a lot of time writing those letters and also just practically like learning about different types of paper and, talking to Joe down the street, the local printer who's going to print things, and just learning all about it, which is really fun. So, I've got that. Those are my two big projects at the moment that I'm working on. But in the background, I'm also in the process of selling some books that will come out in 2027 and 2028, which is very exciting. And I was really hoping someone would want them, and someone's going to, which is great.
Excellent.
Yeah. I think for any writer, it doesn't matter how many you've done. It's always nice to know that there'll be another one. I'm also doing a lot of signing at the moment. There's Illumina had a bunch of special editions come out for its 10th anniversary, and one of them, this is just for a real behind the scenes peek, one of them, a whole bunch of the books got damaged in the warehouse, and so if they want to sell autographed copies, they need us to sign a whole bunch of re-sign a whole bunch of what's called tip-in pages. So you don't sign the book, you just sign, I mean, you guys probably know this, but for listeners who don't, you sign, they send you the front page of the book, and you sign that, and then they send it back to the press, and they bind it in to the book, and it's like you've signed the whole book. And so we I had misunderstood the quantity that were coming to my house. So I've literally spent 8 hours today watching trash TV and signing my name.
Please tell me you're doing some wrist exercises.
Oh, I actually do so many exercises, because one of the most embarrassing moments of my life was having to go to my osteopath, and he's like, "What have you been doing with your right shoulder?" And I was like, and he's like, "Sorry, what?" And I'm like, "Autographing injury." Very embarrassing thing to have to say to someone. So at the moment, yeah, I'm revising my PhD thesis. I'm working on I'm writing, my mail club letters. I'm signing things whenever I get tired of everything else. I'm signing things while trying to stop a small human being from, putting her food on top of them or whatever. So far successful, touch wood. Things like that. So generally speaking, my day is I take my daughter to school in the morning. We're like something out of a Disney movie. We have like an e-bike, and she sits on the back, and we whiz through the local streets while she calls out hello to all of her friends, and it lacks really only like bluebirds carrying her school bag beside us. But it's nice. It gets me out of the house. It gets me moving, because it's so easy to sit in this chair all day, and I say hi to everyone, have a chat, come home. I'm just not a morning person. And so the gift of having done this for such a long time now is that I've just stopped trying to be, because I could force myself to be in my chair, but I can't force myself to be clever. So instead, I kind of get like, do the school drop off and get all my exercise done in the morning. And, if I give myself something, oh, we need milk, I'll go for a good walk and bring home some milk or something, walk the dog as well. And my day tends to start about 10. And I will then usually do like a 2-hour block of really deeply focused work. And then I'll take a lunch break. Because the trick with really deeply focused creative work, as I know you both know, is stop before you're exhausted, not when you worry, which we all know, and yet. So, and so then I'll take a proper lunch break, which is like, my husband's also at home, so it might be, go see him. Maybe I'll play a quick board game or something if I really need to distract myself, or, take the dog for another walk, or it might just be like, oh my God, the detritus of breakfast is everywhere, let's do that. But that's still, you're shifting modes.
Yes.
And then, then it's maybe another 2 hours of deep focus, or if the kiddo has an after school activity, it might be 3 hours of deep focus. And then I'm done for the day. On Wednesdays, I do admin. So everyone knows that there's no point. You can email me whenever you want, but you'll hear back on Wednesday. Really, I was going to say unless something's on fire, but to be honest, you really got to text me if you want something outside of Wednesday. I'm one of those people who really likes to have like sort of clear the decks. But the problem is I am publishing so many books across so many countries with so many things going on that if I clear the decks every morning, it'll be lunchtime and I'll have used all my executive decision making to answer 10,000 emails. And then I'll be like, right, now to write a book, a task that requires no executive decision making at all. Wait. So I've had to protect my brain. Yeah. So, the answer is I've probably got about 20 hours a week of deep work, which is, I know doesn't sound like much, but is actually a phenomenal amount if you can get it done. And is also in line with what all the studies say about really how much you can do. All the studies show you've got about 4 hours a day in you, and that anything over that you are borrowing from the following day or the day after that, and that's not terribly efficient. So I take weekends off, and maybe the weekend before a deadline I won't, because I really want to stay in flow. So I'm sort of the general family consensus here is that about 10 days before a deadline I'm allowed to start going a little bit feral. Which is just I'm allowed to start sort of like I'm a night owl. And I don't really work at night because I love being a mum and I love being married, and I'd like to stay married and get to enjoy this kid of mine. So but about 10 days before deadline, I just start working in the evenings and sort of being a bit feral. But then I take a break after. So
this
is good.
Yeah.
That's probably a lot more than on the typical day.
It's actually really interesting to hear, because you are so prolific and there are so many books on the go, to actually hear, no, it's not 24/7 writing. That's the only way I can do it. It's so inefficient for me. I'm sure there are people out there who can do it, but I'm sure not one of them. And whenever I try to go 24/7, I might be working more hours, but I'm not doing any more because I'm just becoming more and more and more inefficient. But also you got to go out and fill your well. You got to see people. You got to, I say this not in a morbid way, but like life can be short. You got to, not just for you, but for people you love. You got to get out there and be in the world as well, and rather than sort of deferring your joy.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice.
Yeah, no, that is beautiful. I'm going to ask if you're allowed to share what your dissertation is. Can you roll it off your tongue, or can you give us a little hint?
Oh no, I'm happy to talk about it. The hesitation you're seeing there is, how do I do this without accidentally TED talking about it? Okay, I will say this. So there's this fantastic theoretical framework by Wilkins, Fletcher and Driscoll called Genre Worlds. It's a great book. I actually recommend anyone who's interested in this stuff to read it. And the idea is that a genre world is sort of a gathering place for people who produce and consume books in a particular area. So like there's a crime genre world and there's a romance genre world, and I would say there are romance sub-genre worlds as well. YA is a genre world, and it's to be a member of it, you sort of have this in-group knowledge, So, for instance, I enjoy a crime novel sometimes, but I'm not part of the crime genre world. So if I read a crime novel, I might say, oh, that man's got a giant mustache, and I reckon that's a bit of a hat tip to Hercule Poirot. But that is like the beginning and the end of my analysis. I just, maybe if someone lived at 221B in some street, I'd be like, oh, is that Sherlock's, number?
Yeah.
But whereas someone who's really in the crime genre world would spot all the hat tips and spot, oh, I think that's a tribute to a character from, I'm making this up, Death on the Nile that, real fans never thought got justice, or, they would really get it. You know your own genre world.
Yes.
And so my genre world is young adult speculative fiction. And the academic work around it focuses overwhelmingly on white authors. And, and on not that many of them. Our canon's pretty small in terms of that study. And I think that in any field, it's sort of, it becomes very self-perpetuating. Whatever's been written about is what gets written about, because there are sources for you to cite. And so what I am sort of attempting to do with one giant lift is shift the way academia works around my genre world. So I've done these really extensive interviews with 4 women of color who write in my genre world. So with Marie Lu, Donielle Clayton, Sabaa Tahir, and Lisa Fuller here in Australia, and they're very extensive interviews, which I'm publishing with the thesis so that other academics can use them, is the idea. And sort of talking to them about what's their experience been of bringing their own race and culture into their genre world. So, where did they meet resistance? What were they interacting with that came before them? What are they hoping will come, after them? Sort of, what changes have they seen? Because I think that, 4 hugely influential writers. So
that's brilliant.
It's been, it's been super fun, and also I'm turning it in August. So I am at the stage every academic reaches where I am just quite simply ready to put it in a cannon and fire it into the sun. But I won't do that. I will instead finish this revision.
Yes.
And get it out of my life,
get it
please.
Out. Yes.
I'm so done. I had my pre-submission meeting the other day, and one of my committee members was saying to me, now, Amie, you know the August deadline. If you need more time, you've not asked for an extension. So I was like, no.
No, don't give it to me.
I said, August is a hard deadline. And she said, oh, great news. It's not. And I said, no, for me. It is, because I need to be done. I'm out.
So
I'm ready to be a
5
years?
Be a doctor. Has it been about that? It tends to.
Yes. I mean, it's a little longer for me because I paused for maternity leave. But
it's a big chunk of your life, but it sounds like a really critical piece of work that we desperately need.
Yeah. Look, I think so. Yeah. I don't know if you're supposed to say that about your own work, but I suppose why would you devote this much of your life to it if you didn't think that we needed it? Yeah. And we always talk in academia about the idea of what's your unique contribution. Yes. And, for me, I've 1 foot in academia and 1 foot in the publishing industry. And I think, we always have this sort of thing in academic research about insider status, and that if you are part of the group being studied, you need to be really mindful of your own biases. But there's, a counter argument is some research can't be done without being an insider. Yes. And I think in this case, the reason that these 4 authors were so generous with their time and consented to these very wide-ranging interviews was because I'm an insider, and they know me, and they trust me, and they know I'm not going to sort of hang them out to dry with an ill-chosen quote that misrepresents them. So it's, I feel like there were not many, if any, other people who were, in the position to do it. And so therefore you got to get in there, right?
Step up, and you did,
Well, and do some heavy lifting, because maybe they shouldn't have to do it all themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no.
As you say, that's that elevator going both ways, really, isn't it? It's helping everyone.
This is the dream. Well, and I'm, very deliberately working in very accessible rather than sort of highfalutin academic language, partly because I cannot with highfalutin. Like, I know how to do it. I just find it impenetrable. I hate reading it, so I'm not going to write in it. But I'm also trying to write it really accessibly because, accessibly, because I want editors and librarians and sort of people within my genre world to read. I want to shift my genre world by inviting them to read it.
Of genre world. And sorry if I'm jumping in, Veronica, if you had
go ahead.
something. Yeah. Speaking of genre world, so sci-fi, fantasy, Australia publishing.
Yes.
Not huge in Australia. We've got a good market, but it's not enormous. We're not talking
I
US
think we're pretty
based
good.
kind of push
No,
and
but
drive.
counterpoint,
Go.
they have 13 times our population,
True.
and per head of population, we're actually buying so many more books than them. It is not
That's
unusual
great to
for
hear.
my sales figures in Australia to be, if you were to multiply up our population to match America, to be significantly higher. We're a real country of readers, and
Yeah.
obviously we simply do not have the population size to sustain a lot of authors off the back of our sales, but our sales are very respectable. We also have, and my figures on this are a little out of date, but like they're probably going back about 5 years now. But I think last time I saw the figures, it was something like 7% of book sales in the US were through indie bookstores, and it was about 25% here in Australia. So we've also got this great independent bookstore culture that I think really, really matters
Yeah.
as
And
well.
they're certainly
So,
hanging in there, I think, the indie books as well.
yeah, I think people. I think Aussies know it matters. I think
Yes.
Aussies
Yeah.
understand, about sort of supporting their local small businesses.
Yeah.
And we've had this, I mean, our YA is bonkers here,
Yes.
which is sort of my area. Like when I'm in America, they ask me what's in the water
Yeah.
because there's just so many of us, and
Yeah.
so many more of us than there should be,
Mm.
per population.
Yeah.
And, I think 10 years ago, a lot of Australian YA was contemporary. And, you were very, if you wanted something genre, you were looking for Isabel Carmody.
Yes.
Yep.
Who else were you looking for?
Philip Pullman, probably. I know
Tracy
I was.
Harding.
No, but I mean by
Oh, but
Aussies, like
yeah.
not,
Oh, yes. But
we
that's
can't claim him.
that's it.
Yeah.
No, but you're
And
right.
Tracy-
and was Tracy stuff YA though?
No.
I mean, it certainly wasn't marketed
See,
that way. Although perhaps
No.
it would argue,
Yeah.
perhaps you might say now there just wasn't a lot of
Marianne
it.
de Peers.
But yep, there you go.
Yes. Yeah.
The fact that the three of us, though, who are pretty well entrenched to this, are sitting around scratching our heads trying to
Heads are
brainstorm.
going, yes.
Yeah.
There'd be your Victor Kelleher, obviously Garth Nix was writing at that time, so we weren't bereft by any means, and what we had was pretty incredible. But these days, the publisher lists in the majority genre. You look at all of the major prizes, and there are sci-fi books on there, there are fantasy books on there. It's sort of really sort of come out of hiding, and you look at the lineups for our major festivals, and in the YA section, it's so many sci-fi and fantasy authors. It's great. Crime as well. It's a really exciting time.
So I wonder then why we don't have a bigger market in that sense for agents representing fantasy and science fiction.
Okay. Yeah, look, I think if I were to guess, and it is completely a guess, I'd say it's mostly that it is just incredibly hard to be an agent in Australia because you're working off commission, and Australian, advances are just not that high because we don't have the population to support, an advance that's really large. So as an agent, you've got to have a lot of clients, and, your percentage is still, you need a lot of them because your percentage of what they're getting is not going to be that high. And so I think a lot of agents, they're the hardest working people you will meet. But gee, you have to love the job, I reckon, because it'd be so challenging. It'd be so challenging. And I think, in the States, the odds of, or even in the UK, the odds of hitting a few high advances among your clients just make it a little bit more of, an achievable job. So, I mean, I think of our agents, I think a reasonable number represent sci-fi and fantasy. We just don't have that many agents because, it's a tough job. And like I say, it's got to be such a passion. And also, I mean, we all have passions that we can't afford. So, I think there are people who'd be... Right. So I think there'd be people who would be great agents, but it's just financially out of reach for them because they can't take the punt on those payments. All of this speculation, but I think, I think it's probably at least a part of the picture.
All right, let's think about sci-fi a little bit more.
Yeah.
What direction? What direction? Because we've had Artemis too, and all the brilliant, flourishing things that went on there. that's really reignited people's love. I mean, I remember
I
being
hope so.
very young, and we were allowed to go home because we had a television in grade 3. So now you know how old I am.
Amazing.
When they landed on the moon, so
Yeah.
Amazing.
we could go home and have a day off school, and that stopped the world. And I think
Yeah.
Artemis has had their moment as well. So
Yeah.
what do you think sci-fi is going to do for now? Is there going to be an explosion of people going, oh, I can write that stuff, or I want to write that stuff, or where does it go?
Well, look, if I knew that, I'd be rich a few years from now. So what a great question. Look, sci-fi, truth is, has always been a very hard sell. There's a lot of sort of received wisdom based in not anything that anyone's able to cite. That people say to me all the time, oh, sci-fi is just impossible to sell. And then they go, unless it's you, Amie. What do you do? And I'm like, I don't think I'm doing anything different. I think you're just wrong. But, which I say. But if I had $1 for everyone who said to me, oh, I don't read science fiction, but I loved your books, then I would be doing this for fun, not profit. It's,
Yeah.
and I always say to them, oh, have you read XYZ book? Have you seen XYZ movie or TV show? And they go, oh, yes. And I say, well, then I think you'll find you're taking in a lot of science fiction. People just think that science fiction has to be Star Trek or nothing.
Yeah.
Which I mean,
the success of Project Hail Mary, I mean, just going nuts. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, and Project Hail Mary is, it's science fiction. It's
It
not
is
science fantasy.
deep technical sci-fi. Yes.
Absolutely. Gosh, and I mean, I loved the book, which I listened to on audio.
Yes.
And I loved the movie.
Yeah.
And,
Amaze.
But I don't know. Look, I hope we get more sci-fi.
Yeah.
It's always been a really hard sell. Even when there have been breakout books in the field, it's always been a really hard sell. But I do feel that at the moment, there's surely a market for sort of this hopeful sci-fi that explores the future and allows us to think about questions.
Yeah.
Because we have so many of them. And yeah, I don't know. I hope so, but I don't know so.
Yeah. Do you think that, movies, obviously, Project Hail Mary, The Martian, I guess, but things like S.A. Corey's, The Expanse, like, love that, where it really pushed that kind of social sci-fi, which was, the geopolitical stuff and the class stuff and all of that. Do you think that those kind of things being accessible and on streaming and all of that means that people are a bit more interested in sci-fi?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so, because I think, I mean, the thing is, for a long time there in ye olden days, sci-fi was just all straight white men by and for, to the point that you'd read it and you'd be like, oh my God, what happened to the brown people in the future? Was there an illness?
Were there any women? What?
How did these men come to exist? I know. So like it really, it was for a long time. It's why one of my heroes is Anne McCaffrey, who was, the first woman to ever make the New York Times bestseller list for science fiction. She was the first woman to be made a grandmaster. She was one of the greatest world builders that speculative fiction has ever seen, and I think ever will see. And she wrote books that starred women and people of color and people with disabilities and queer people. And, did she get all of it right through today's lens? No, she did not. Was she light years ahead of her colleagues? Yes, absolutely. And, and we admire her so deeply for that. But gee, there wasn't a lot of it. She had plenty to define herself against. And I mean, I say all that by way of saying, I think for a long time, there were a large group of people who were like, well, science fiction isn't for me. And I know that because I'm not in any of it. And I hope that as we see, even, we new series of Star Trek shifting, some people love them, some people hate them, that's fine. As we see, stuff like The Expanse, as we see stuff like Project Hail Mary, as we see, I mean, God, love Murderbot. Oh my goodness. And I was nervous. I mean, I felt reassured that Martha Wells, the author, really loved it. But, I was a big fan of that series before it came out. So I was like, please get it
please
right.
be good.
But like, the TV series with its group of beautiful, diverse, hippie weirdos, is
gorgeous.
I think my hope is that the more people see themselves in science fiction, the more they will realize they are welcome in science fiction.
Yes.
And, you know, the more kind of diverse and welcoming it will continue to become. This is my dream.
Yeah, it's a good dream to have.
Yeah.
We're very happy to support that. Laurie, your
Yeah.
turn.
Oh, so I want to go a little bit off center, so to speak.
Mhm.
What's the most interesting question you've been asked on an international panel as an Aussie writer? Have you
Oh,
had any
gosh.
weird or interesting or just quirky connections with Australia question
I
that you've been
mean,
asked?
yeah, so there was, I mean, apart from the occasional compliment on my English, which really does happen, I think my favorite was when we were touring for, well, I want to say maybe Illuminae, and we were doing this fun social media thing. Remember when social media was fun? You know,
Yep.
this was then. And we were doing this thing where at every event we would get people to do the Mexican wave. And so the idea was like at the first event they'd go, you know, right to left, and then the next event we'd go left to right, and we were sort of going to stitch them all together and just show all these different audiences sending it back and forth. And at the very first one, we're explaining this to the crowd, and we said, and we'd love you to do the Mexican wave. And someone put their hand up and said, what is the Mexican wave?
Oh,
And there's this long pause. And I said, no, I know you do this. I've seen it. You know, maybe you just call it the wave. And they went, oh, the wave. And then someone went, why do you call it the Mexican wave? And there was this really long pause where Jay and I went, oh my God, is it a racist reason? Like, why do we call it the Mexican wave? Like, but you suddenly think there could be, like, literally there's no reason it's Mexican. So, like, there could be any, and so there's this long pause, and we were just like, don't know, let's call it, and we just move on, because what could you do? And it gets to Q&A time, and as soon as we say, are there any questions, this one guy down the back, his hand shoots up in the air, and I'm like, he's keen. So I point to him, and he said, I've got great news about the Mexican wave. And I was like, oh yes. And he said, not racist, if anything, admiring. And I said, how so? And he said, apparently, he'd been researching down the back, Australians learned about the wave when the World Cup was held in Mexico in like the 70s, and it came home to Australia from the World Cup. And the Australians mistakenly believed it to be a Mexican tradition. And so actually it was attribution. Actually,
I love it. Excellent.
We must name it after the people we believe to be the genius inventors of this collective sporting activity.
Excellent.
The relief that we had not accidentally just been waving around a racist term that we didn't, you know. Yeah. So that's probably my most quirky Australian moment on the stage. But it had a happy ending, thank goodness.
That's thank goodness. And we thank goodness for Google. That person was obviously Googling madly down the back.
Down the back, doing some real deep dives for me. Appreciate it. Yep.
Following up on getting out there then, because one of the things is, an author can't just be an author these days. You cannot just sit in your office and write the books.
So I wouldn't give Veronica to just live in a little cabin in the woods and swim out with a very hefty carrier pigeon. Oh, the dream.
Wouldn't it be lovely? However, obviously, you do a lot of getting out and about, which is fantastic. You're you're doing book signings, you're on panels, and you're going to book fairs and those kind of things, and doing tours. What's your advice for new writers, say, whether they're with traditional publishers or indie or self-published? What advice do you give them in terms of getting out to meet readers? What's your best?
I think my best advice, I chat about this. I'm often on panels with newer authors who haven't done it a lot before. And I'm like, I've done it so many times that I could do it in a coma, and and have done it sick, have done it sleepy, have done it pregnant, sleep deprived, have done it very pregnant, all the rest of it. But I think the thing I always remind them of is this is not a hostile audience. This is which we sometimes forget a little bit, because I think book social media can be a little bit hostile sometimes. It can, rightly or wrongly, it can feel to people like if they say the wrong thing, they're going to get immediately jumped on, and, they've got to be so careful, and people sort of are monitoring them. And I always remind them, this is a room of friends. This is just a whole bunch of book nerds like you and me who came out for a book event, and they just want to have a fun chat about books. And some of them are probably feeling quite shy because maybe they've come alone or they don't know other people who are here. And, they're all just interested in what you have to say, because there's no reason for them to come otherwise. And maybe they came to see someone else on the panel and they're about to learn about you, and that's great too. But to just remember that they're a room full of friends. It's a room full of people who, are all just really wanting this to go right for you and are so ready to laugh at your jokes and are interested to hear what your book's about, and, who are just, and then the other thing I remind them about is to speak slowly, because when you're nervous, you don't. But, and I mean, I always, when I am on panels with people who have less experience than me, I make a real effort to make sure that I'm familiar with everyone's books, so that if they have a moment when they are shy, or they just, that maybe they just don't have the practice at talking about something, I can make sure that I sort of pop in with a little tee them up and, now, Laurie, I know that you'll have a lot to say about sibling relationships, or, whatever it is, and sort of give them the little bit, well, it'll be their turn in a few years is the thing, but I think I'm sure it would be very nervous. By the time I came to authoring, I had so much public speaking experience from previous work, that I was just like, and that was to hostile audiences. So I was like, oh, this is a breeze, me and my friends.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think,
Goodness.
Yeah. So I think, my main thing I always tell them is to remember that everyone here is a friend.
Yeah.
Everyone here is delighted. Yeah.
True. And you walk into book fairs and festivals and panels and everybody is smiling, and, we've generally got way too many books under our arms, and, we're just agog to hear the next thing. Oh, Laurie, you wanted to talk to something about Irish history and conflict resolution.
Oh, yes. Let me, I
careful.
definitely wanted to ask this question. So you mentioned that you're doing the PhD and
yes,
you've done a lot of study, but you've also studied Irish history, but also conflict resolution. And you are a co-writer. You write books with other authors, plus editors. You've got your publishers, you've got your agent. How much is your conflict resolution experience and some of the Irish history experience? How did you, A, get into science fiction after studying Irish history? And B, how have you used your conflict resolution?
Okay, so Irish history first. When I finished high school, I had not the faintest notion what I wanted to do, and I was blessed with a mother who said, oh my goodness, you're 17 years old, you're not supposed to know what you want. What a wild concept that you would have any idea, Amie, what you want to do. That's ridiculous. What do you enjoy at school? And I said, English and history. And she said, great, study that. Your only job for the next few years really is to just grow up a bit, darling. Like, you're 17 years old, just, go have some fun and pass your classes, please.
I love her. She's marvelous.
Oh my God, she's incredible. My mother is, she's everyone's mum. Everyone who knows me, she's their mum. She's, she shows up for a lot of people in my life, and I model myself on her, and I will be lucky if I'm half the woman. But so she suggested that, and I was like, great. So I did that. I studied literature for a while. I studied history. My mum is Irish, and I was raised partly over there, and we get back as often as we can. So we're very close with our family there. So my child who has no concept of travel, keeps saying, when can I go back to Ireland to see my cousins? And I'm always like, well, I'm saving up, my darling. When she's pointing at pieces of tat in shops and saying, may I have this? I say, well, we're saving for Ireland at the moment, my darling. So it's very useful in that respect. But so, I wanted to study Irish history for that connection, which I really enjoyed. I wrote about Irish women's emigration after the famine and before World War One, because there's this cool phenomenon where from the rest of Europe it was like 90% men, 10% women, and for the Irish it was like 50-50. And there's a whole bunch of really cool historical reasons for that, and I studied letters, and I really enjoyed it, and hopefully created something useful with it. I then went on from that degree and studied law, because I sort of had this brief thought of, there's lawyers in the family, and I was a debating champion, and sort of, clearly kind of had the same genes that made the various QCs in the family. And I thought, maybe that's for me. And I worked out quite quickly that it probably wasn't, but I stuck with it. I mean, mainly because the lifestyle just wasn't for me. But, I stuck with it, and I had great fun in all the mock trial, won all the mock trial trophies. And, my most famous victory was for being set the task of defending a genocidal dictator. Everyone's got a job to do. Picture me there saying, how can we know what was in his mind during that radio broadcast? thinking to myself, I'm going to hell. But you know what? It was, I really enjoyed it. But then towards the end of my law degree, I discovered I did a mediation subject. And the heavens opened and choirs of angels sang, and I discovered my calling in life. And I do not, I'm the only person I know who's had two vocations. And I did my master's degree in conflict resolution, and I loved every minute of it. It's all about finding consensus, and people, people love to say, oh, well, if everyone's kind of equally annoyed about the solution, then it probably means it's fair. And I just never really found that very palatable. And mediation was a place where it could be like, well, actually, if everyone feels really heard and everyone feels like they got to say what they needed to say and everyone feels really respected, then it's going to be a good outcome, even if it's not quite what they wanted. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I found it fascinating, and it very much just lined up with who I'm very much like a connections and consensus and person, and so that it made my heart happy. And so I then moved into working as a mediator. I ran the mediation program at a very large not-for-profit, and it was very hard work, and I also got to come home from work every day knowing I had affected someone's life in a positive way, like in a really concrete way. You'd be able to point to people and say, that person that now has this in their life because of what I did today. And yeah, it was like I said, very hard work, very tiring, but incredibly rewarding. And I did that for many years, and I also taught mediation. And the only thing I could ever imagine myself leaving that career for was writing, which is my other great love. And I think people are always fascinated by, the idea of like, oh, what happens when you fight with your co-authors?
Yeah.
And, the answer is I've got three co-authors. I've got, Jay Kristoff and Megan Spooner and Ryan Groudon. And so that little bit of hesitation there was because soon to be four, to be announced in the future. But I've never had a fight with a co-author ever. And
Wow.
it's not because, I'm sure it doesn't hurt having a master's degree in conflict resolution, but I think it is actually about having the same approach to what it is that you're trying to do, that when you encounter an area where you disagree about what should happen, rather than experiencing that as an arm wrestle, you experience it as, a call to stand side by side in front of the whiteboard and stare at the problem together, because whoever's not happy is right, but maybe they might not know why. So we just keep talking and unpicking why it is that we think the solutions we like are best. And eventually we'll kind of get underneath it to like what's driving that. Like, oh, you're going for more pace. Oh, I'm going for a moment to process that romantic declaration so that we know where we're at with it before this action sequence or whatever. Like, we can do all of that in one scene. Once we know what we're trying to achieve, we can kind of weave it together. So I've never had
I love that.
I've never had a fight.
That's brilliant.
I think the place that the Masters gets used is in empathizing with characters.
Yeah.
Because I think there's this thing that's very true in mediation, which is that your empathy must be real. Because, we all have, I like to say, we all have a little monkey that lives in our heads. And it's when you meet someone and you go, I don't like you, like instantly. That's the monkey. When you meet someone and you go, I'm safe with you, that's the monkey, and it's the monkey is seeing all these little things that you're not seeing. It's not conscious. It's the type of instinct that's kept you, alive and all your ancestors. And I think if you're in a mediation, staring at someone sincerely and saying, I really hear your pain, I get it, and you don't, their monkey knows. And they will not play ball with you. So if you really want to give people the opportunity to really let their shields down and work together and hear each other and craft something that feels safe for them, you have to actually be sincere in your empathy. And sometimes that means empathizing with choices that are not the choices you would make. And that is the understatement of the century.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes it is, when you meet people in mediation, they're in conflict. They're in so much conflict, in fact, that they've had to invite a stranger in to help them even have a conversation with the other person. Like, if things were going well, I wouldn't be there because they wouldn't need me. So, often it means empathizing with someone who has perhaps made a series of choices that, again, are not the choices that you would make, or that are pretty objectively not nice things to have done. But you've got to try and empathize, and it doesn't mean you're giving them your blessing for what they've done, but you've got to try and get on board with, like, how did they get there and how did this happen? And I think it really helps with characters who I perhaps also do not agree with, but I have that muscle that makes it easier for me to think, okay, but why would you do that?
Yeah.
Let's really get,
that's what I found so believable with Red Star Rebels. You really felt when they started to really connect with each other beyond who they were to what was going on. You could feel that as like, this is true empathy. It's that true understanding, which some books or stories or movies, it stays on that superficial level. So I really like that about your writing too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's something I think a lot about.
Well, it comes out in your stories, and I'd have to say all the characters in Illuminate, just tick, 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 same for all of those. All right. Now,
I love an evil computer. Anyway.
Yes. So,
evil spaceship computer, sorry. Yeah. I love it.
Oh, look, I mean, what is Illuminate if not the story of a series of characters who one by one forget that Aiden is a computer and not a person, and then have experiences that flow from that forgetting. Yeah, that's really what it's about.
100%.
It's very good, because I was checking your merch thinking, oh, maybe I need one of those T-shirts that
an Aiden shirt.
Yeah,
right. They're really nice designs.
They are indeed. So, I mean, Amie, you're absolutely the full package. You've got books, you've got merch, you've got podcasts, you're doing all those kind of things, but you also have a young daughter waiting for you to put her to bed. So,
I mean, I do, but she's not complaining, I'm sure.
She's not. No, she's probably up late doing something that she doesn't get the chance to do. Well, okay, let's sneak in one more. Thinking about self-publishing. So a lot of authors, as we've said, that getting traditionally published can be a tough gig. Not a whole lot of agents necessarily. Lots of people choosing self-publishing, and there are, with the fabulous print-on-demand tech that we have these days, so much better.
Oh, it's such a different game now.
It is a completely different game. And we did have the lovely Chris Munnery on from Ingham Spark and talk through bits and pieces, and that was great too. So have you ever thought of self-publishing? And, if you did, would you give it a shot? Or what do you see as kind of futures of self-publishing?
Oh, gosh. I mean, though, that's a very big question. And I don't know how well qualified I am to speak on it. I certainly would think about doing it. Yeah. Who you really want to get on for this is Ellie Marnie, because Ellie has a hybrid career and does both. And so she's sort of more able to compare. I have a series, which in the US, the Unearthed books, I've now gotten my rights back from my publisher.
Oh, wow.
And so when Meg and I have 2 spare brain cells to bang together, which feels like a distant prospect, but I'm hoping is not. Then we plan to maybe give that a light revision and self-publish. That would be the dream. Yeah. And so I'm looking forward to giving that a go. And we've also got some sort of short stories that we might do it with. I think that there are genres that do better in self-pub than others. I mean, some of my absolute favorite authors are indie authors who self-publish in the romance space in particular. And I think that that's sort of, that's the most obvious place to do it, because I think readers of romance read more than everybody else.
Absolutely voracious.
They are. Voracious. I mean, well, when compared, there was a great piece in the New York Times, when compared to the average population, they read more. They also earn more. They are also more educated. Like, the romance readers are a superior cohort.
Yes.
But, in which we include ourselves, obviously. But, God, I'm certainly more educated anyway, if that's what university degrees give you, which I think is sometimes questionable. But I think I would certainly think about doing it, but I don't know a lot about it yet. That's going to be, I have a couple of friends who have done a lot of it, who I will certainly be hitting when it is time
for more information,
for me to figure this out. In terms of the future, I think that we had this sort of, it was called the gold rush that happened up to a couple of years ago, where some people were absolutely making bonkers amounts of money, but publishing, 10 books a year. And I think that, the general consensus is that gold rush is now dying down. And so And I think that there's also all of this slop coming onto the market. There was this day, I think it was in 2025, where for a brief moment, a whole bunch of the Amazon rankings in the US were dominated by AI generated books. And I don't mean like people looked at the writing and went, oh, that's a bit AI. I mean, they were nonsensical. Like it's not a writing quality thing. They were literally, full of nonsense sentences with nonsense titles and nonsense covers that were being generated by bots and were being purchased by bots. And, it was wild. Amazon, as you can imagine, involved themselves quite quickly in fixing that situation. I don't know what they did, but they did it. Wow. And so I think that for me, the future of self-publishing is going to be sort of around quality and curation, because, for me, the self-published authors that I am most into are authors that I sort of built a relationship with, and I'll read anything that they write. And if they recommend something in their newsletter, I'll probably read that too. And so I think a lot of it, and this is sort of where self-published authors have a lot of control over, price drops and sales and building those relationships and cross-referring. And I think that that's a lot of, what do I know? Like, so not a self-publishing expert, but as an avid reader of lots of self-published stuff, I think that we will see that kind of curation and quality mattering more. And we'll see, people, sort of readers figuring out, who am I glommed onto? Who do I love? And sort of following, not just reading that person, but finding their reads maybe via some of the people that they love, because that'll be how we curate. But I feel like there are people who could make much cleverer predictions than me.
No, that's all right. We always like to do a little bit of both sides of the aisle, so to speak. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I can't believe we've got to the end. I don't want to let you go. But
no, as you can see, I could chat all night.
Yeah.
my trademark.
Genuinely, do you have any final words for potential readers or writers that are out there, particularly those writers who are thinking, you know what, I've got a book in me, I can do this, I'm going to write a book?
Oh, gosh.
What advice would you give to a new writer starting out?
So the reason I'm staring into space is because, I've literally been sitting here all month writing 12 months worth of letters about this exact subject.
Excellent.
If you want the long answer, AmieKaufman.com/mail club is your friend.
Jump on in.
But I think, what advice would I give to someone who's sort of at the start, who thinks they've got a book in them? I would say work on your craft. And that does not need to involve expensive courses. It does not need to involve any of that stuff. It might be like, listen to podcasts, listen to Amie Kaufman on writing, listen to Writing Excuses, listen to a bunch of fantastic, it's great. Listen to a bunch of fantastic podcasts out there. The Odyssey Writing Workshop podcast is another absolute gem full of good good lessons. And this is what I did when I was starting. I would just listen to those podcasts on my way to work, on my way home from work, over and over and over again, trying to sort of make them my own instinct, So I think having the patience to do that is important. I think finding yourself a community in some way, if you can, is important. And for that, like sort of, for instance, here in Melbourne, I would say do something with Writers Victoria, but, find a local community group, find anyone, because a little bit of sort of joint accountability can be really helpful. But also you don't have to. I didn't have that when I was starting. I just had Meg Spooner, who I write with, and we were just, giving it our best, but there were none of those resources back then, so just in total ignorance of the odds, we were just having a go. Thank God, because I think confronted with the odds, I don't know what I would have said.
I'll just stay at uni or conflict resolution.
Oh, honestly, the people I meet who say, I queried 15 books before I got my agent. Just such admiration, because whatever I'm reading of theirs is usually great, and I'm like, I just don't think I have it in me. I think I just would have crumbled into a wall and given up. But I would say work on your craft, find a community if you can, and sort of expect this to take a bit of patience, and know that is not a bad thing. That is a good thing. There's no hurry. Unless you are literally writing a book about, I don't know, unless you're publishing, the book that was about the mushroom trial or something, then it probably doesn't need to be out right now. It's nothing's that timely. So, and don't worry about trying to write to a trend, because by the time you can spot the trend, it's too late to write to it. It'll be over by the time you're done. So, be your
You
own
wait long enough, it
trend.
comes back.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure. But, witness dystopian coming in now for the half of the population who process trauma via that versus the other half who are like, tell me more about cozy fantasy. We all do.
Give me more Rocky.
Right. Yes, I just want friendship. Yeah. But expect this to take a little while and find that enjoyable and comforting. You can't make a whole movie just so that you get to stand on the red carpet. If only because it turns out that standing on the red carpet is actually usually full of people shoving and jostling, and it's grubby right outside of the camera, and someone steps on your dress or whatever. You can't do all of the training and climb in time out, and for that one moment that you get to stand on the peak, you've got to enjoy the climb, you've got to enjoy making the movie, and you've got to enjoy writing the book. So do lots of celebrating. I think that we're not very good at doing that. I think writers tend to do this thing, almost all of us, where we say, if I could just write a draft, I don't even care if it's rubbish, I would just be so proud to have written a draft. And then we write a draft, and without missing a beat, we turn around and go, yeah, but it's crap.
Yeah.
And then we say to ourselves, okay, well, you have to edit it. And then we say, if I could edit it, I'd be really pleased with myself. And we edit it, and then you go, oh, but there's so far to go. And then you say, oh, I'd love to get an agent. And you get an agent, and you go, oh, and you see people, they celebrate for a minute, and then they go, oh, but she probably won't sell it, and then I'll probably get dropped. And then the book sells, and they go, oh, but it's not in advance like that person, is it? And then oh, but I'm not getting invited to that festival. And it's not jealousy, it's this inability to celebrate themselves. And your brain is an animal's brain, and if you keep promising it a reward and then kicking it instead, it's gonna stop going to where you said the reward would be, because it just gets kicked when it gets there. And it's not stupid. And so I think instead you gotta pop a bottle of champagne when you finish your draft. And
Every draft.
Oh my God. I'm nearly 30 drafts in. Yeah, every draft. Party at my house when I finish a book. We go out for a fancy lunch, or, we drink champagne, we do whatever. I think, celebrate yourself. And don't be shy about if people around you need prompting, say, I'm celebrating this and I'd like you to join in, and people will join in. Sometimes they just need a cue. They don't know if it's a big deal or not, because they don't know about this weird thing that you do with your time, sitting around and hallucinating and writing it down. So I think, sorry, that's too many pieces of advice.
No, absolutely.
I would say just prepare to enjoy the journey, because it is 99.99% journey. Would be my advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that.
You have to love what you do.
Yeah.
All right. I think we need to love you and leave you. And Amie Kaufman, it's been absolutely fantastic chatting with you. And thank you so much for agreeing to jump on the pod.
Of course.
Anyone who talks books and writing, we're really happy to chat with.
Yeah.
Loved being
Laurie, are we going to call the byline?
We should indeed. So we'll ask you to join us to say, read more Aussie books, which is our tag phrase. So
amazing.
I was going to count, but I won't. So if we could all remember to.
Such a teacher.
I know. If we could remember to read
more
Aussie
books. Fantastic.
Bye for now, everyone.
Thanks, Amie. How good, Laurie, was that chat? I know. Well, we were both a bit fangirl, and she was very professional but delightful. It was good.
And she's so diverse in everything that she does, right from the podcast, which we've promoted before.
Seriously,
but
people.
Get onto that. But also just her range of books, and they're just so good. They're so good.
Yeah.
It's such great advice to early writers and to starting out writers, and I could listen to her talk for ages.
Yeah. And it's interesting because she has written so many books, and look, anyone who writes a lot of books, I think they get the voice that they have, even if they're writing differently. There's always that kind of thread of the way they write or as they write. And, as I mentioned, that kind of, not bullshit, what am I trying to say? That really sort of sparkly, strong female with a tongue-in-cheek.
Little bit of banter, a little bit
of banter.
Yeah.
Yes, it's there. And it just, I think, Amy's written that.
Yeah.
Which is
But
good.
the fact that she's written or co-written so many amazing books as well, and all of her co-writers are amazing authors as well.
Yes.
I just,
absolutely.
don't know how she does it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We love we're getting, they're getting meows from the back stalls there again. I think she thinks I've been on the podcast long enough. So, all right, maybe we better go to some quotes.
Yes. Well, I thought since we are in May and May is Star Wars month and we've just had May the 4th, so I thought I'd go with a George Lucas quote because Star Wars. So, so let me grab that. I had actually a couple, but I want to make sure I have the right one that I was looking at.
So before the 4th of May was Star Wars, it was in fact the day I got married. And we celebrated 41 years this May the 4th.
That's
I know.
amazing.
So then now the world's decided to make it famous, and it's also a very good friend of mine. It's her birthday, so she always remembers to wish me happy anniversary, and I always remember to wish her happy birthday. Happy birthday, Sue.
Fantastic. Oh, I love that. Now, you may have to cut out some dead air. I did have it in front of me. I'm
That's
so
all right.
sorry.
It's all
I
right.
had
Do
to
you want
go
me
from
to-
a small screen to a big screen. So, my quote from George Lucas, I've come to the conclusion that mythology is really a form of archaeological psychology. Mythology gives you a sense of what people believes and what they feel. So I thought that was an interesting take on, given so much of fantasy and then sliding into science fiction fantasy, it's interesting way to look at it. Archaeological psychology.
Yeah, I like that.
Mm.
I thought I'd give you a quote from Amie Kaufman.
Yippee.
That's a whole stack. So this is in fact from Illuminae. The universe owes you nothing. It has already given you everything after all. It was here long before you and it will go on long after you. The only way it will remember you is if you do something worthy of remembrance.
Nice.
So if you are thinking of getting out there and doing a writing, do good writing. And here's one which everybody will know is from the little computer in the book. But they are beyond me, these humans, with their brief lives and their tiny dreams and their hopes that seem as fragile as glass, until you see them by starlight, that is.
Ooh.
How lovely is that?
Yep.
Lovely is that. So we're attributing it to Amie. It could in fact have been Jay, Christoph, but it's all right. We're saying Amie, seeing as we chatted with you. There we go. All right. So if you enjoyed that episode, we have one piece of advice for you, and that is to remember to read more
Aussie
books. Bye
Bye
for now.
Let's meet again, where magic happens.